Madam President.
Senator from Washington.
Madam President, just last month, I joined 7 of my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats from the House and the Senate, to introduce a critical piece of legislation called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It is a bill to reauthorize and dramatically improve the Workforce Investment Act, or WIOA, which authorizes a number of critical workforce development programs in all 50 states. Madam President, this legislation is something I've been working on for several years with a number of our colleagues. It is something that is long overdue, for more than a decade. And since we introduced a compromise deal last month, we have been working feverishly with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle and both sides of the Capitol to iron out any issues they might have and make a few small technical fixes. We have made sure that every single member of the Senate and their staffs have had the time to look through this deal, ask questions, and propose amendments. And now, today, we are one final step away from sending this tremendous bipartisan deal to the House of Representatives and then hopefully to the President's desk. Madam President, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to include in the record a list of over 100 organizations supporting this bill, including business groups, labor, educators, governors, mayors, and countless others.
Without objection.
Madam President, improving our federal workforce programs is, as I said, something I've been working on for more than a decade. And during that time, I have heard from so many workers and businesses in my home state of Washington and across the country who tell me how important, effective workforce programs are for them and their communities. Business owners, large and small, have told me that while existing programs help, it's become harder and harder to find workers with the skills they need to fill new jobs in the 21st century. And workers who want to advance their career or get back on the job after being unemployed have told me that it's more and more difficult to get the education and skills they need to compete for the new jobs. So, Madam President, I am thrilled that we have reached this important step in the process. And the reason this agreement was even possible is the incredible bipartisan process we have had over the last few months to reach a compromise we could all agree on. So I really today want to thank my co-authors of this bill in the Senate for all of their hard work through the process and their work to rally support for it today. Senator Tom Harkin, a Democrat from Iowa, the great chairman of the Senate Help Committee. Senator Lamar Alexander, who you heard from, a Republican from Tennessee, and the esteemed ranking member of the Help Committee. And finally, my very close partner in this process, Senator Johnny Isakson from Georgia. Madam President, Senator Isakson and I are the co-authors of the Senate version of this bill to reauthorize WIOA. And throughout this process, it has been an absolute pleasure to work across the aisle with him to get this done. His integrity, his commitment have been key to making this a reality. You know, Senator Isakson's office is right next door to mine, and whether it was on the phone or while the two of us were walking over here to the chamber to cast votes, we must have had hundreds of conversations on how to reach this point, and so it means a lot for me to be here with him today. Madam President, I want to also thank a few other senators whose commitment to improving our workforce systems has been remarkable. First of all, Senator Enzi, our colleague from Wyoming. Senator Enzi and I had been working for a very long time to reauthorize WIOA. More than once, we would be at the White House for meetings, or regardless of the topic, wherever we were, he would tell President Bush and now President Obama, this should be a bipartisan effort we can all agree on. And I think today's actions are proof that he was right all the way along. Second, I want to recognize and thank Senator Sherrod Brown from Ohio for his years of leadership on these issues. Senator Brown's understanding of the changes in the American economy and our places of work is unparalleled, and the state of Ohio should be very proud to have him represent them in the Senate. In particular, Senator Brown's work on the issues of skills, manufacturing, economic competitiveness, and education reform have been critical. In crafting this deal, we were fortunate to be able to draw on his Sectors Act and weave the concepts of that throughout this bill. In fact, because of Senator Brown's strong advocacy, we were successful in requiring sector initiatives at both the state and local levels, as well as including them in plans and functions and reports. I know that in my state of Washington, we use sector strategies in everything from aerospace industry to maritime, health, construction, gaming, finance, renewable energy, and vinoculture. And they all work to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our workforce provision systems. So I'm very proud that we've included sectors in this bill and have worked with Senator Brown closely and have benefited from his knowledge and leadership. I also want to thank Senator Kay Hagan from North Carolina for her work on this legislation. Her America Works bill provided us with a great framework to think about skills and certification and credentials and the need to be closely aligned with employers. Because of her leadership and her vision, this bill requires that training that leads to recognized post-secondary credential receives a priority, meaning that both workers and employers benefit from the training provided through this act. We also require that all states and locals report on the number of credentials offered, meaning that the entire workforce system will be more closely aligned to the needs of employers and workers and will yield more direct value in and for the marketplace. I also want to mention that Senator Hagan worked hard to ensure that we focus not just on initial credentials, but credentials that are industry recognized and both portable and stackable. And finally, Madam President, I want to thank Senator Franken from Minnesota, who represents the same state as the late Senator Paul Wellstone, who was my Democratic predecessor lead on this bill. And true to Senator Wellstone's legacy, Senator Franken has shown a deep understanding of the needs of job seekers and workers and employers, as well as a passion to help them all advance and succeed. I was very pleased to work closely with him on this legislation and ensure that a number of his priorities were included. Lead among his priorities was building closer ties with our community colleges, and we worked hard to make sure that happened. I'm also pleased that we benefited from a truly innovative program in Minnesota, Twin Cities Rise, which has been a pioneer in pay-for-performance models for many years and which helped to inform our inclusion of pay-for-performance provisions in this bill. So, Madam President, it's clear this bill is the product of many, many authors. And while we know that nobody gets everything they want, and we all got, I think at the end of the day, we can all proudly say that this bill will help our workers, our businesses, and the economy for years to come. Because federal workforce programs have proven time and again that the best investment we can make as a country is an investment in our American workers. I've seen firsthand in my home state of Washington workers who were laid off, who were able to get new training and new skills and new jobs. And I've seen so many Washington state businesses, from our aerospace companies to video game design firms, that were able to access workers with the new skills they needed to grow and compete. But with millions of new jobs that will require post-secondary education and advanced skills in the coming years, we will fall behind if we do not modernize our workforce development systems and programs now. We have to make sure that when high-tech jobs of the 21st century are created, Americans are ready to fill them. And that is exactly what we have all done in this bill. We've doubled down on the programs that work, we've improved the programs that had become outdated, and we've created a workforce system that's more nimble and adaptable, better aligned with what our businesses need, and more accountable so we can continue to make it better. Madam President, we started with a House proposal and a Senate proposal, and we all met in the middle. And that's exactly what the American people sent us here to do, to work together, to help our workers and help our economy grow. This is an all too rare opportunity for all of us to get behind a strong bipartisan bicameral bill, so I urge all of our colleagues to support the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act and send it to the House for a vote. Thank you, Madam President, and I will yield to my great friend and partner who has spent innumerable hours getting us to this point, and I really want to thank him and his staff and all of our staffs who have really worked to find a compromise and not to find a fight. Thank you very much. Yield the floor.